Are there more sellers in the market than buyers currently in Minnesota?
Yeah, so there's been some interesting news stats around the country. In some localized areas, there ends up being a lot more sellers than buyers. And now, realizing that real estate is a really hyper-focused local markets, things can change based off of where you're at. So specifically when it comes to Minnesota, I have actually the stats from April for the last 7 years, just to kind of indicate, hey, how much inventory do we have right now? How many buyers are out there? Are we getting into this surplus of sellers, a surplus of inventory, which would essentially equate to prices most likely dropping? And here's kind of what it looks like. So in April of 2025, our inventory on the market is at 8,395 homes. So comparing that over the last 7 years, this is the most amount of properties we've had active on the market since 2019.
Right.
So obviously, once we hit the pandemic, houses started flying off the market. We got to a really low point where actually, I think it was in 2021, we got down to 5,600 or 5,400 is the lowest number we've had in April for inventory on the market. And now that's always been a problem that we've had talking with your clients, right? What do they always say?
Supply and demand. I can't find any houses. Are there going to be more houses coming? And the good news is more houses have been coming, but what are we still seeing from the buyers?
Yeah, and I think it's that of the scary part of the headline or, hey, we have more inventory than we did since the pandemic, right? Prices are going to plummet. Now, I think it's also realizing is put yourself back into what it felt like in 2018 and 2019 when we're at a similar market or similar inventory. We're also in a similar month's supply, so kind of similar buyer demand. Is what was that market like?
It almost was the same thing of we're still not a lot of houses out there, but we did see some multiple offers, not as much as we did during the pandemic. And that's kind of similar to what we're seeing now is some, houses priced really well are going to get multiple offers and there's lots of buyer demand for that. And then on the, buyer side, sometimes you can wait a little longer and that house still may be there. It's starting to balance itself out a little bit, but we got a long ways to go before we hit that true balanced market.
Right? Yep. Even a balanced market. We're still in a seller's market.
Yes,
it still
100%.
feels like that, right? It's not, we're not shifting over to go, oh man, I need to sell my house right now because my prices are going to go down on it. We still have a long way to go to get to there.
Correct.
And I think the ironic point of all of this is going back in 2018, 2019, we were talking about, hey, inventory is super low. We need more houses on the market. This is a really, seller demand kind of thing, right? And now we hear since we've increased it, now it's like, oh, there's blood in the water.
Right.
Hey, there's too many homes on the market, right? There's more sellers than buyers, right? This is the pandemic and interest rates all coming to a head in the economy. We have something to kind of talk about that's a little bit scary or could be. But in reality, if we put this back into exactly what it was like in 2018, was 2018 scary?
A similar situation. We just had the pandemic that put the market on steroids with inventory flying off the market and buyers being able to afford more with lower interest rates. And now we're, as I said, kind of settling back to where we were. Yes, there's more homes, but really there's not. I mean, to a point.
I think on the seller side or even the buyer side, right, it's kind of a hit and miss market. You can get, if your home is nice and priced well, man, there's enough buyers out there that are going to push that price. If it's not, and then it'll sit for a little bit.
Right.
But I think in reality, it's one of those things for buyers, it's going to become hopefully a little bit better. And hopefully this inventory kind of continues to increase so we can get to a little bit more of a stable point where they don't have to be fighting over every property, where we can see a property twice. We can have a little bit of time to make the decision on it. And I think from the seller's perspective, is there this big concern of, inventory is rising, interest rates are rising, my house prices are going to fall, and we just don't see that happening yet. We still have so much farther to go with inventory to get to that point.
Right. And that was kind of the conversation we had this week in our meeting of what is the market? Is our prices actually coming down? We increased so much in 2020, 2021. We were increasing at 20% equity value, and now we're down to 3 or 4%. So average price or median price is still going up, but we're just not increasing as fast. And that's where, I think the news flips their story a little bit to say, hey, this market's crashing. It's coming down, and really it's not.
Yeah, but I think when it comes to median home prices for the last 7 years on increase, so from April 2025 to April 2024, we had a 3.5% increase, right? A healthy, kind of steady, slow increase, right? Year prior, we had a 4.5% increase year over year in median price. The year before that, we actually had in 2023, we had a slight decline at 0.6% decline, right? That was right when interest rates did skyrocket.
Fall of 22.
Right? And that's when things started happening. And then obviously we get into the pandemic time period. In 2022, we had a 9.3% increase, right? It's just a lot for an increase.
Right.
But I think also going all the way back as we look at these numbers of, hey, what was it back in 2018? Median home sale price in 2018 in the Minnesota Twin Cities area was at $269,000. That number today is $400,000.
Yep.
Right. And I think for anybody that bought a home back then, awesome, amazing, right? So lucky to be able to have that. And now I think it's the same thing for buyers where they go, well, that already happened. It's not going to happen again.
Right.
But I think it's the ironic thing too of like, do you remember how many people you talked to back during that, pre-pandemic time period that were just on the other side of the crash, right?
Yeah, that 2015
offers,
to 2018 time period of waiting for that market to crash.
How many buyers we talked to that were like, I'm waiting for the crash to happen again, right? And had they made that decision then?
Right. And they're going to have $200,000 in instant equity based on median sales price.
Yeah, they would have, right? It would have been an amazing decision. But I think, and a couple of points and a lot of things we talk about with our buyers is you don't know how good of a deal you got, right? Until it's a few years later. There's so many people, I think, during the pandemic that, you saw doing multiple offers and waiving inspections and everything. And people would be like, that's crazy. I would never do that. You shouldn't be doing that.
Right.
There's no way I'm going to get into this market. But when you look at it now, it's like, man, I wish I would have been in that market more with the interest rates the way they were.
Right.
We're not going to see that again. I wish I would have bought more houses. I wish I would have skipped more inspections.
Right.
And that's just something you just don't know when you're in it. And I think that same point too, and we've talked about this a lot of going, when the market starts to go down, when you're in that kind of crash mode, when you are going to find something that's at a really good deal, it's like, you're not going to know it then either.
No, correct. And that, I look at it for myself of how many more investment properties I wish I would have bought in that 09 to 2012, 2013 market, understanding where prices were and where they're at now would have been amazing.
Amazing, right? That same thing we might 5 years from now be saying to ourselves right now, but you just don't know it. It doesn't seem like it, And that's probably the same thing we would say during the pandemic, right? Of like, this doesn't seem great. Prices are really high. I know my interest rate's super low, and that's great, but
gives me extra buying power. But how long can these prices continue to go? Well, they're still continuing to go up. So
I didn't think that they would, and I think the interest rate too. I didn't think interest rates would have gone as high as they did. It was like, oh, we have 3.5% now. In a few years, prices will stabilize and we'll be at 4%. Well, that's not the case, and I think when it comes to the crystal ball of what happens 5 years from now is we don't know. So I think putting all those things into perspective of, hey, where's inventory actually at? What is the actual metrics of the real estate market look like, and being informed when you're making those decisions. And I think also trying to drown out some of the noise or some of the things of going, hey, this is a bad time, or this is different because of this, right? And it's so...
Is it a real headline or not a real headline? And talking to your local professional is going to help out with that.
Yeah, and actually knowing the numbers and the metrics in between it and going, hey, and I think this is the conversation I have for people that are kind of on the fence about doing something. It goes, do you think right now is going to be better than it will be a year from now? What's going to be better about your buying situation? And obviously a lot of those things come into personal decisions, and then it's easily a no, right? But I think when it comes to the market economics of properties, of buying and selling, right?
And the financial piece of it. Is it going to be better next year than it is today? And 99% of the time, it's better now than it will be in a year from now.
And I can do that by looking at to go, man, would I have rather bought a property last year than this year? Yes, right? Properties increased a little bit. Prices, interest rates have actually stayed the same or even gone up a little bit, right? Probably better off buying last year. What about the year before that? What about the year before that?
Right.
And we can you can keep going until we hit 2006, 2007, where it was like,
prices
definitely
were going up
should have skipped that one, right?
Yes.
But I think knowing that, or like looking back to go, hey, my odds are probably pretty good that this is going to work. I think one, take the note of watch what the headlines say, read what kind of goes on in it. Your market's a little bit different than maybe the market that they're talking about, but what type of market are we actually in right now? What does it actually like for us? What is it going to continue to be like? And I think the thing for buyers to watch out for, to look for, is to go, hey, there's more homes coming on the market. I may have a better chance to find the property that I do want, right?
Right.
I think for sellers in the future, it's this kind of thought too of how much does active inventory actually end up increasing over the next kind of couple of years, right? There could be that little shift of going, hey, we don't get multiple offers. We have to have our house really in good shape, right? That shift may be happening a little bit so we can get closer to a balanced market.
Right.
But I think those are kind of two things to kind of keep your eye on as this thing moves forward. But it really feels like a kind of a healthy, stable market right now is what it feels like.
Healthy, stable, leaning more towards the seller at this point, but it's not what it was pandemic where we were at, inventory was less than a month of homes on the market. So.
And I think in reality, that's kind of best for both sides.
Right.
So that's how the market in the Twin Cities is going right now and how it's gone kind of the last 7 years. So for more information like this or questions about hyper-localized from cities to counties to different areas, reach out to us. We'll answer any questions you have.